Perkins is a household name in Australian motorsport, and Jack Perkins is enjoying his time in Aussie GT this season.
Yeah, I'm lucky to be born into it. Dad was quite successful, and now I'm here doing various racing, a lot of V8 supercar stuff, and now in the GTs with a mate of mine, and it's good fun. The GT racing's really good. A lot of aero on the cars, and they've got a lot of grip. This one's a little bit down on power, but still good fun racing. I love racing. I love driving. Whenever I've got a steering wheel in front of me, I'm the happiest guy. And everyone that knows me knows that, and I just love driving cars and race cars. It's a great passion, and it's something that I've always wanted to do since I was quite a young boy.
Despite not being the fastest cars in the GT field, Perkins still enjoys driving the little Ginettas.
It's pretty cool. I mean, obviously outright people think Ferrari, Mercedes, things like that. We're in a Ginetta, which is a little 3.5 litre V6 engine. It's got good grip, it's quite light, and it's good when there's a lot of corners. We come to a place like Queensland Raceway, there's only 6 corners, so we're a little bit off, but somewhere like Winton, I think we'd be quite competitive against those big Mercs and the Ferrari as well. They're really good. It's got a little 6-speed sequential gearbox, and it actually goes really, really well. And we've got 3 or 4 of them here in the same class, and we have a good race in the sports category. And it's good fun racing. You know, everyone's got the same equipment in our class, and it's good racing. Everyone has a bit of fun. Well, Mark Griffith, who owns the car, part of the Griffith Corporation, he's a good friend of mine, and we raced against each other in Aussie racing cars, and he's also helped me out a lot with my own racing, and you know, he wanted a co-driver. The races are a bit long for him, and it's quite good fun because, you know, we're different sizes, but we get along really well, good friends, and you know, he just said come and have a drive, and we've won our last couple of rounds, and hopefully we can continue that here at Queensland.
Jack says his team's got the perfect strategy sussed for winning in Australian GT.
Yeah, well, we're restricted to 6 tyres for the 3 races, so we really need to make sure we keep some tyres for the last race. Obviously, that means with only 6, we're going to use them around the car at different stages, so really drive the car straight, look after the tyres. Mark and I have got the driver changes down pat, and hopefully just nice trouble-free, no mistakes, and we'll see where we finish.
He's added some spice to the Australian GT Championship this year, has Jack Perkins racing with Mark Griffith in one of the Ginettas. This is round 5 of the National Championship. There's just 1 to go after this, and this is race 3 of a 3-race weekend here at Queensland Raceway. Clark Quinn is on pole. That's because he won race 2 earlier in the weekend, and before that, Tony Quinn took out race 1. So it's been a family affair so far. Darren Smith is alongside me. Daz, welcome to you. The guy to watch for me, though, Greg Murphy. He's taken over the Trofeo Motorsport Corvette this weekend, and he has been electrifying.
Hasn't the landscape changed across the front row of the grid here at Queensland Raceway? Greg Murphy in there with Jim Manolis has stepped out of the seat this weekend, and Murph gets away very nicely, and they charge down into turn 1 here. Murph has got through on the champ from last year. Car number 1, the VIP Test Boots car, has been streeted by the Corvette so far.
So Clark Quinn to 2nd place. Clark's been really good this weekend in that 2013 GT3R Porsche. The Aston Martin next of Tony Quinn, and then a couple of Audis. Rod Salmon in the Squirk One World Bar entry, and the car that Dean Koutsoumides will share with Tim Macro in this race, a last-minute draftee in the Equity One racing car. So there's Salmon, Justin McMillan in the GB Galvanising Lambo Gallardo in there too. So some great names up and down this Australian GT Championship field. But it's the Corvette that leads the way. Greg Murphy in front, Clark Quinn putting pressure on next, and then the Aston Martin of Tony Quinn. So Rod Salmon in the Squirk Audi Dazzy sharing with Liam Talbot this weekend. Liam, the Radical Australia Cup competitor, and he's been really fast in that Audi R8 LMS Ultra.
Great to see that the Squirk team have left the night lights on there after last night's night race, which was a fantastic sensation in the Australian GT Championship. You alluded to earlier, of course, Richard, this is the final round before the Australian GT Championship goes international, off to Highlands Motorsport Park in New Zealand.
Yeah, first time for them. That's going to be an amazing experience for them. On board with Janjan Adasa in his Lamborghini, just dicing with one of the Ginettas, and Mosler goes through as well. So there's plenty of racing in the middle of the field here in Australian GT. Yarn bouncing back this weekend. Big crash at Phillip Island in this car earlier on in the season. Caused a lot of damage, but great to have Yarn back on the racetrack.
Well, yes, he's opened the doors on his own race team. Oh, look at that. Tony Martin's gone off, and that's interesting development there as well, because these guys are playing their Joker card this weekend, which throws a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons. They get double points out of this weekend. So Perkins and Griffith were leading into this weekend, but it looks like the way the points are starting to add up after race 1 and 2 that they're looking pretty good for coming out in the lead.
Change of position for 2nd. Tony Quinn gets past his son Clark. So Quinny goes forward. He has got this Aston Martin Vantage GT3 humming this weekend. Tony's been driving exceptionally well this season, perhaps career best form in Australian GT, but he has come alive this weekend, now chasing Greg Murphy down. Now, Murph perhaps fighting with half an arm tied behind his back. I don't think the Corvette quite the 2013 spec GT3 car that the Aston Martin and the Porsche behind him, but Greg Murphy, he's a Bathurst legend. We know how good he is, and he's driving very well.
The entertaining thing about Greg Murphy is he's one of the only cars in the field that has to take his hand off the steering wheel to change gears now. Yes. You just see that red glove go over and crack it down another gear or go up another gear as well. So Murph driving very well, but the interest is right behind him. The father and son combination, VIP Pet Foods and Darryl Lee, and oh, this looks like Dixon out in the GTR. What a shame.
Yeah, running in one of the lower classes in Australian GT, a class structure in this championship, making sure there's racing up and down the field. This is a great battle for the lead. 3 different brands of cars, first, second and third, and then the Audi R8 LMS Ultra running in 4th place. So 4 brands in the top 4. It's been awesome. Roger Largo was on pole this weekend in the Lamborghini, the JBS entry, but unfortunately some mechanical dramas forced them out early in the weekend. But there's been so many different brands at the front of Australian GT. Of course, Erebus Motorsport not making the trip here to Queensland Raceway, but they've dominated the last 3 rounds with Jack LeBrock and won 6 races on the trot.
Tony Quinn just getting the blue flag there, so being alerted to by the flags. I'm pretty sure he knows that the VIP Pet Foods Porsche is right behind him. So the battle continues, and Tony is moving up onto the back of Greg Murphy now, and these guys are setting some pretty good times as well, actually. Tony Quinn is sneaking up on a lap record here at the moment.
So Murphy continuing to hold on. He has been in this position so many times before in his illustrious racing career, but not so much in GT cars. Now, not the first time he's driven this car. He raced it at the Liquimoli back as 12 hour at the start of the year, which doubled as the opening round of the Australian GT Championship, and had a pretty good result there too, Daz.
He certainly did. We just saw Graham Lusty. There's a name dug up from the Mount Panorama history of the past. Of course, VK Commodores in Group A and Group C trim, now in the Mosler. Interestingly enough, Roger Largo actually in the weeks to come, he is heading off to Sepang for the 12 hour over there, so the FL2 will be a good piece of kit, so Roger's got plenty to look forward to.
David Russell and Peter Cox sharing the driving duties there. We wish Roger and the Aussie team all the best. Cook and Kingsley leading the way in the challenge class in their Porsche Cup car. So Brendan Cook and Matt Kingsley, former Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge champion, Carrera Cup racer, a proper gun in the Porsche. But that challenge class has been interesting this weekend. John Modista teaming up with Johnny Reed in a Cup car as well. That's an unbelievably strong combination. So like we've spoken about, Daz, the racing up and down through the field in Australian GT this year. It's not just that outright battle, as tasty as it is. There's plenty going on in the classes as well.
Well, someone might be looking for that red Il Bella Rosso Racing Ferrari. JB not taking any further part after an incident in the night race last night in pit lane. So if you're looking for JB and Peter Edwards, they're not taking any further part in this weekend, but the battle is raging here. Jan Janadasa in the trophy class car, chasing down the Porsche there with Matt Kingsley at the wheel. Great to have Matt back on the Shannon's Nationals.
He drives hard, doesn't he? He only knows one speed in the Porsche, and changes the lead. Greg Murphy passed by Tony Quinn. The Darryl Lee Aston goes to the front. So Quinny gets himself in front, and that will put him in a very good position to win the round because of his results so far this weekend. Just past one of the Fossil boys, the Motor School Racing number 3 Porsche Cup car. So Quinn in front, Murphy still there in the big Corvette, and behind him Clark Quinn. So V12 front engine Aston Martin, and then the V8 front engine rear drive Corvette, and then the rear engine rear drive Porsche with the screaming flat 6 behind. So that's part of the appeal of these GT3 regs. They're international, but all these cars very evenly matched in terms of parity and performance.
There was plenty of excitement being waged before Bathurst this year with Greg Murphy getting behind the wheel of the Corvette. Unfortunately, that challenge didn't last so long over that race weekend, but here this weekend, Greg Murphy really showing the Trofeo Motorsport team that they can really take it up the front. Trofeo have got a big presence here this weekend, of course, with Pirelli tyres, which are the control tyre for the Australian GT Championship, the DH specification on the championship cars, and the DM on our GT4 or sports cars in the Genettas just to the back of screen there.
So here's Clark, defending champion, in Australian GT, edged out Erebus Motorsport in the final round of the streets of Sydney. And a pretty dramatic season finale it was too. We look back, there's the Squirk Audi. Just in the background was the Equity 1 car. Timmy Macro drafted in. Now the Equity 1 car's not the 2013 spec car. It's a couple of evolutions back in terms of class. Runs in the same outright spec in Australian GT, but just doesn't have the last minute updates that the Ultra specification car that Rod Salmon drives has in this class. So there's different specs of these cars. Some of them have been updated to 2013 spec, some not quite so much, but the Equity 1 car goes past Jack Perkins and Mark Griffith, who were leading the sports class in Australian GT.
Tony Martin pit stop now. We just saw the Perkins-Griffith car that is leading this class. So compulsory pit stop window now well and truly open. The Ginetta crew, Steve Williams and his mob down there doing a great job. Just normalising tyre pressures there. We see the car controller saying, get those pressures and get out back behind the safety line, as we see the R8 LMS Ultra charging away. Jan Ginadasa again in behind Matt Kingsley. This will be good actually for Jan Ginadasa. He'll be enjoying this because this guy in front of him, he knows how to win races up and down this big brown land of ours, and he's certainly putting that Porsche very nicely on the track there. Jan just a little bit soaring at the wheel there at turn 4. Tricky one, Snake Gully, it's known to the locals.
And around the outside, he goes to the Porsche. Cook and Kingsley have been awesome this weekend. They were 9th in race 1 and then climbed up to 5th position overall and comfortably first in the challenge class in race 2, held here Saturday night under lights, and GT cars under lights is just an unbelievable spectacle. So they've been driving really well. There's the Audi that goes past. There's the Mosler MT900 GT. Lusty completes his compulsory pit stop. George Fossil, so George and Ben, father and son team, racing in Australian GT, but he's not going particularly quickly in that 997. And now the Equity 1 Audi dives up the inside of Jan Ginadasa. So Audi v Lamborghini. Remember, these two cars based on the same platform. Similar V10 engine from the same architecture. Remember, Audi own Lamborghini, but in this stage, well, the Audis owned them on the racetrack too. He's got in front.
And thank goodness for that, because I think Lamborghini might have ended up as history if Audi hadn't come along there, that's for sure. But this is interesting because both these cars are of a previous generation of the current model. We're seeing the GB galvanising Lamborghini running the FL2 type of setup, and then also Roger Largo, the 560, but that Lamborghini is the 520 out in front as we see the Equity 1 car heading into the pits.
Justin McMillan, he's 6th in the M Motorsport car. This is the car you alluded to, current spec, outright car. So 2013 upgrades have gone on to the M Motorsport entry. Stephen Richards has done a lot of track time in this car, helping the crew develop it, and at Sydney Motorsport Park did some co-driving as well. It's a fantastic car, and Justin's been getting up to speed. Here's the driver change, so Matty Kingsley will jump in, Cook jumps out, pat on the back. And this Porsche specialist doesn't live too far away from Queensland Raceway either. Very much a home track. Still a tyre dealer down on Southport on the Gold Coast. Kingsley jumps in the car and will get back out on the racetrack. We're midway through the final race of the Australian GT Championship. The conclusion when we come back from this short break. Welcome back to Queensland Raceway. It's the Shannon's Nationals, and we're midway through the final race in round 5, the Australian GT Championship presented by Pirelli. Justin McMillan has just completed his compulsory pit stop. We're midway through this pit stop cycle. Darren Smith is alongside me, and this is an entertaining race so far. Tony Quinn, though, has been electrifying in the Aston Martin.
He certainly has, and boy, doesn't that Lamborghini not want to idle down pit lane on that 40km/h pit limiter. And Justin's chest just heaving there, just getting his breath, just controlling that adrenaline. Twice Victorian Sports Car champion, stepping up to this, the Australian GT Championship presented by Pirelli, has been quite an operation. Great sponsor in GB Galvanising on board, and he's really starting to come to terms with it. Stephen Richards has certainly shortened that process a bit.
So from 3rd place, Clark Quinn pits. You can see having a bit of a drink, some excess water just dribbling down on the race street. It's not hot here at Queensland Raceway, but it's warm. And he's still got time to say good day to the camera as well during his timed compulsory pit stop fire the car up, get it started, crew over the line, and then he will go. So part of the parity system in Australian GT is that the guys at the front of the field, the pro guys in the series, get a longer pit stop. So just brings them back towards the field. And you can see Clark waiting for some time, smokes the Porsche up and drives out for VIP Petford. So he's back in the race. Championship leader pitted from third, long stop. He's going to have some work to do to stay on the podium in this one.
And Ben Fossil just going to the back of the garages there as well. So that's a shame for the challenge class car, as we see car number 1 charge back out of the pits, riding those bumps around the very famous turn 1 and 2 here at Queensland Raceway. Tony Quinn in now.
Now this will be for the lead. We need to watch how this plays out. Tony pits. Clark has already pitted. He came out in third. He pitted from third position, but the gap on the racetrack wasn't too much, so it comes down to pit stop strategy now between these two, perhaps, to decide the race. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. Brett Francis, car controller, former racer in his own right. Away goes Tony. Pretty good stop. We'll see where he rejoins in relation to his boy Clark.
Well, this is the tension part of the weekend because we're very close to probably about the last quarter of the race still to go here as he charges out. We can't quite see where the Porsche is at this point in time, but the battle will be on, that is for sure, as we got Greg Murphy in as well. These guys last night nearly had discs cracking on the front of this car, and they were glowing bright red when they came in for their compulsory 80-second pit stop. And Shell, the team manager down there at Trofeo, had some time-lapse photography, and it went from very bright red to not so very bright red over 80 seconds. So they're just making sure that they're keeping the temperature down, they're keeping airflow across those discs so they don't have any damage, so Murph can press on and try and chase down the Aston and the Porsche in front of him.
Gets dropped off the jack so you can see them blowing compressed air onto those brake discs to try and cool the front rotors. This plays very hard on brakes. 3 very big stops and a couple of other substantial stops at this place. It's very much a stop-go circuit, though. It does require a bit of flow. So now we get a bit of an idea about how this order works out as Greg Murphy rolls the Corvette out of pit lane. I think that looked like an Aston Martin going through, and indeed the big rear wing of Clark Quinn's Porsche. So we'll need to see where Murph comes out in the order, and I think that's going to be 4th.
I think you're right there, Richard. That pro driver penalty, 18 seconds for Murph there, has put him back into 4th place. You just know this is going to be exciting all the way to the flag now with Murph chasing something down. He's got that squirk Audi right in front of him.
And Stephen McLaughlin it was there. So from what we can see, it's Clark Quinn looking in reasonable shape for this race. There's Greg Murphy, the Kutsamides Macro Audi R8 LMS just behind the Equity 1 car. McLaughlin in the Viper leading the trophy class, so he's one of the newcomers, Daz, in the Australian GT Championship presented by Pirelli this weekend, and it's great to have the big Dodge back on the racetrack.
It's fantastic to have the Dodge out there, and he's joined Justin McMillan, who has graduated from the Victorian sports car scene as well. Of course, Steve McLaughlin, a lot of Porsche history there, so he's stepped up to the big front engine Viper, and really adds another spice like this car does to the Australian GT Championship.
It's good to see a competitive Corvette in Aussie GT, isn't it? Right at the front of the field. It's a cool car. It's racing with the Squirk Audi, Rod Salmon and Liam Talbot. So pit stops all done and dusted, out of the way. It's a sprint to the flag. The Audi covers its racing line, but Murphy's too good. Fires around the outside and almost gets fired off the road. Does. Drops it off. Just got caught out there with McLaughlin. That will be a bit of an issue post-race, perhaps, to discuss.
Yeah, and the Joker card being displayed on the back of that car as well. So Murph going for double points here this weekend and doing very well with it. And I tell you what, that was one of those 1% moves where Murph thought, gee, I hope they've seen me, and no, they haven't seen me, and I'm off. But he's right back on with the task, isn't he? 2 straights later, and he's right into the back of the rear wing of the Equity 1 Audi and down the inside, a little bit sideways. Braking threshold found there in the Corvette as he charges onto the front straight here at Queensland Raceway.
Tim Macro's done a good job jumping in at last minute with Dean Kutsamides. Only found out on Friday, got a couple of laps right at the very end of the day to acclimatise himself with night racing and indeed the Audi. That's just another look at Murph. Outbraked himself a little bit, but McLaughlin being in the mix there with that Dodge Viper sort of caught him out as well. So here's Tony Quinn in the Aston Martin, down towards turn 1. Ginadasa in front, about to go a lap down. But to finish my point, the Equity One car, Dean Kurtzamini is a great supporter of Tim's racing career. Of course, Tim leading the Formula 3 Australian Drivers' Championship, going very well here at Queensland Raceway this weekend. Took pole and won the first couple of races, so it's a great sort of support there for Dean, and Tim jumping in that car and doing a great job and driving it just about as hard as it can be driven.
About driving it hard. Tony Quinn has given this Aston Martin absolute hiding ever since Phillip Island, and he got a fantastic result. He's been on the GT Championship in its many forms for many years, driven Porsches and Ferraris and Moslers, everything known under the sun. He also had a go into an Aussie racing car recently as well, so he's doing very, very nicely, and he's going to look forward to getting onto the Highlands at Motorsport Park over in New Zealand for the final round this year.
So Tony leads this race, just to confirm. Tony leads, Clark Quinn next, and then it's the 29 car, which is the Trofeo Motorsport Corvette, running third. So not too far to go in this. Tony Quinn looking very, very good.
Yeah, it's a dominant performance since the compulsory pit stops by Tony Quinn. There's the Perkins Griffith Ginetta chasing down, that'll be George Fossel in his Porsche as well. So these little GT4 Ginettas in the sports class in the Australian GT Championship really acquitting themselves well, and often been running well above their station in this championship. And with the likes of young Jack Perkins being drafted in, it's any wonder.
Jack's been a great benchmark, I guess, for the other Ginetta drivers. I mean, Jack operating at a very high level, winner of the Development Series V8 Supercar round here just a week ago. Driving exceptionally well and really enjoying the challenge of driving a different style of racing car, and indeed class racing as well. It's a different thing for him, but enjoying it, and I think getting the most out of it, and working closely with Mark Griffith to get him more up to speed as well. It's a good battle between the little Ginetta and the Porsche.
Oh, Tony Quinn grinding to a halt up between turn 4, 5 and 6 there, actually.
So that's the race leader, Daz. Race leader pulling to almost a stop, and that gives the lead to Clark Quinn, and it'll put Murph to second. So dramas for Tony, and there's an issue in the front headlight there, it should be said, for Clark Quinn's car.
That was an eye winking as he came down the straight there.
It was, perhaps winking at his old man, because he's just inherited the race lead. So Clark Quinn finds himself in front.
Wow, this is drama-packed. Tony in the Darrell Lee Rockley Road, Aston. Oh, he's got going again now, and that is absolutely back up to race pace. So this may be one of those come to a halt, turn it off, set and forget, and get back on with it, because Tony in car 7 is now back underway, and he is charging. He's got these two Audis in front of him, mixing it up as they have been all weekend long.
So it's a key battle for position, trying to fight for the final spot on the podium. Clark Quinn leads, Murphy second, so that was the fight for third place. Here's the race leader, and what a turn up for the books this has been for Clark Quinn. His old man breaks down and gets going again, but Clark now firmly in the lead, and bearing in mind building an almost unassailable lead in the Australian GT Championship presented by Pirelli. One to go at Queensland Raceway.
Yeah, Clark Quinn in the maths, probably going to have to wait until after this race, but this is certainly looking like back-to-back Australian GT Championships for the VIP Pet Foods driver, as Tony Quinn goes through on the Squirk Audi R8 LMS there, ticks off that box, and he's only got about half a lap left to go before he can start to complete this race on the podium. He looks to the outside, and this is Clark Quinn, race leader, even with a one lens out on the left-hand side of the VIP Pet Foods car. Commanding performance in this race by Clark, very disciplined and fully committed to getting this win, and boy, oh boy, he is very commanding in this championship, Richard.
Yep, it's almost unassailable from here. Not just a race victory for the defending champ, but a round win as well on home turf. Clark Quinn will take out the 5th round of the Australian GT Championship presented by Pirelli here at Queensland Raceway. Now, Greg Murphy will be second, but this is for 3rd, 4th and 5th. McMillan looks down the inside, unloads the Squirk Audi, unloads himself in the process. Last lap drama between the Lamborghini and the Audi. And
Yes, he's feverishly trying to get the fire back into it, but Greg Murphy gets across the line to take second place. A great weekend for Murph as we see Chinadasa and Briggs coming together.
And Quinn got home in third, so he got back on the podium. Great result for Dean Koutsoumides and Tim Macro fourth. And Rod Salmon and Liam Talbot, despite the last lap dramas, finished fifth. So some happy faces on the podium here at Queensland Raceway. There's Jan Chinadasa. He gets the class victory in the JJA Consulting Lamborghini Gallardo. And there's the outright podium. Murph, Clark and Tony Quinn.
Oh, I mean, I can't believe how good the conditions are in the middle of winter here at Queensland Raceway. So it's been stunning in that respect. And, a bit of fun out there in the Corvette this weekend. It's a bit very different to the usual stuff that I drive. So it's enjoyable to get behind the wheel of something that performs the way that does.
Oh, geez, there was no strategy. It was just go out as fast as can and try and keep up with the guys in front, Murphy and Dad. And, we managed to do that for a little while and have a bit of a dice. But after the pit stops, I knew we were going to be spread out. So we just had to bank out some consistent lap times and just working on it. And unfortunately for Dad, he had gearbox issues and I come home for the win, so it was all good.
Oh, look, I knew today was going to be the ding-dong battle, and Murph is surprisingly a good driver, and he brakes at the very last minute, and he knows how to run a race, and I just had to pace myself, and I'm pretty sure I could have got past Clark's, which I did, and just under brakes, and then I just had to pace myself for Murphy. But today's race for me, first half was really cool for me. It was some good guys out there,
Yeah, he's got every right to be happy, Tony Quinn, and he's second in the championship. Clark Quinn with an almost unbeatable lead out in front. Dean Koutsoumides looking good in third, Bow fourth. Rod Salmon up to fifth in front of Roger Largo. In the GT Challenge class, it's Ben Fossil leading Brendan Cook and George Fossil, with Kingsley jumping to fourth. And Steve McLaughlin in the Dodge Viper leads the GT Trophy over Jan Chinadasa and Jordan Ormsby. Meanwhile, Mark Griffith leads Jack Perkins, his co-driver, in GT Sports.